this book, you're going to love it. Once we get into this book, you're going to see how spectacular it is. But allow me to introduce the author and illustrator. He's just an amazing guy. His name was Don Freeman, and you may know him because he was the author and illustrator of another book called Corduroy, which was, I think, his most popular. He did lots of other wonderful things too, but Corduroy, so you know, I like to do that because I like you to see the similarity in style. Don Freeman, Corduroy, 1968, a few years ago, right? And Hattie, the backstage bat. So you can see we're all set up. We've got a backstage here, a little bit of staging. I have some techniques that I'd like to teach you because my puppet, which I loved making, and I'd like to thank you for allowing me the privilege of making it, because when I get to use the creative juices, it just is fantastic. So thank you so much. It's you're doing that gets me on the creative page. So put the books down, and I'm going to move around a little bit. So if I'm all of a sudden standing up and moving to show you stuff, forgive me, I'm not leaving you. So if you will look carefully behind me, you will see a bat. Why is there a bat hanging backstage? Because that's where the story starts. But this is not the kind of bat that Hattie was. This is a bat. And I like to bring along my equipment because guess what I made? I made Hattie out of a bat. And it's a sponge bat, which was developed for the sole purpose of playing baseball inside the house. And so this is a piece of material I use. What if you don't have a sponge bat? And not everyone has them. I happen to have a lot of them, and I use them to make all sorts of different things. You could use a tube of paper. Wings on a bat are kind of special, so you might even want to look and see what a bat looks like. Bats, and most everyone is afraid of bats. And I'll tell you a little bit of what I know about bats. Bats are very helpful. They can carry diseases. But they're way more afraid of you than we should be of them, because these are some of the good things bats do. They eat bugs, and not all bugs are our friends, right? A mosquito, be eaten by a bat. And who doesn't like something that eats a mosquito? So this bat was hanging around and why did I have it hanging around? Because that's what bats do. They hang upside down when they sleep. Sounds very uncomfortable to me. So I'm going to bat this out of the ballpark and introduce you to a couple of other things that are really cool. For example, you can also tell this story using shadow puppets. So I brought along a couple of shadow puppets that actually could help you tell the entire story. So if you've never done shadow puppets, allow me to introduce you to the world of shadow puppets. So could that be a bat flying around? Yep. So this one I cut out. I didn't cut it out. There's a wonderful person in my town who does all these cool things with shadow puppets. So I needed a house. So and this is what shadows do. If you have a fine light like that, big old light, and the closer you get to the light source, the bigger the shadow. So if I wanted a really big house, which we need for our story today, that's what I would do. But of course, you wouldn't see my hand. You would only see the shadow, because I would either put these on sticks, but I wanted you to see how I held it. So here's something cool you could also do. What if you wanted a tree next to your house? See the shadow there? Tree can climb, it can go all the way down into our stage setting. That's called the stage setting. We need some of that for our show today, but I've done that a different way. And let me show you one other shadow puppet. It's a beautiful shadow puppet. People are always giving me presents, and hopefully they are puppets. I like puppet presents. So this one, which you can see in its full color, is a leather shadow puppet. And I think it's made out of leather, you can see, and it's very colorful. And it's really, really kind of, I don't want you to be creeped out by it, but if you look carefully, it's got a lot of creep in it, okay? This is that. See the shadow of the back there? Some shadow puppets, but not all, would enable you to not only have the shadows, but see, they come out in black and white because it's so thick, but they would let you see the colors through them. That's shadow puppets. You can do a lot with shadow puppets. Sometimes when I was a kid, I would, my brother, my big brother and I would make shadow puppets. After, if someone would turn on the light, we would take a flashlight and make shadow puppets. Hello, I am a shadow puppet. It's very nice. With voices, of course. All right, so I'm going to carefully put down this one, by the way, is from Pakistan. I didn't tell you that. I have some from China, and then some you could just make, and you can make parts that move on them, so they seem to walk across the stage. But now, our friend Hattie. Hattie is a wonderful story, and it talks about people's fears, and it talks about friendship, and it talks about pulling all those things together. So, but I'd like you to meet Hattie. What do you think? Would you like to meet Hattie? Okay, here she comes. I want you to meet her. She loves to fly. I'm going to start her where she starts her day. So, as I said, I'm going to be getting up and down a little tiny bit with this story. So you will excuse me, but if Hattie were sound asleep, that's where she'd be. So that's where I thought we'd start our day. Don Freeman likes to start his stories out setting the scene. And this is how it goes. The backstage of a dark, empty theater is a lonely place, and where only a bat would feel at home. To a little bat named Hattie, this was home. She had lived in the Lyceum Theater all her life, so she had never seen a green tree or a haunted house, or for that matter, had she ever flown to the bright moonlight and back, like all the other bats do. Hattie's sky was the vast space above the theater. Every night she flew about for hours at a time, swooping in and out among the ropes and rafters and between the stage curtains. Then, when she was tired, she'd land on one of the rafters and hang on with her tiny claws at the bottom of her feet. And that's where she would spend the night. And the next, she would do the same thing. The only person who knew about Hattie was Mr. Collins, the stage doorman. He came in every morning to sweep the floors and to keep the theater clean and tidy. There hasn't been a show in this theater for a very long time, but Mr. Collins was never lonely because he had Hattie to keep him company. Once he made her a hat. Out of some old stage material he'd found. She liked it very much, and he always shared the tidbits from his lunch with her. And then, once in a while, he would bring her a fresh flower because that's what she really liked the best. Each noontime, he would pull his chair up on the stage and they would talk. Well, actually, he would talk. Hattie did not have much to say. One afternoon, he had very important news to tell Hattie. Starting today, some actors are coming here to rehearse a new show. We must be very careful, Hattie. You must never be seen because for some strange reason, people are afraid of bats. So you can watch, but do not come near them. Now, with a long-handled broom, Mr. Collins swooped Hattie up to the top of the rafters, and there she watched. And there was much to watch. Hattie had never seen people before. She had never seen anybody but Mr. Collins, and she watched them all very carefully. They rehearsed their show, and because it was a mystery, they whispered, so she could not hear very much. But she knew it was going to be very exciting. Not too terribly long into the process, while Hattie was watching, they began to build a stage. The scene was set in a haunted house. Hattie watched carefully as they put up a house in the back, in the very theater that she had lived in. It was a haunted house, 3 stories high, and it had a tower and undoubtedly bells. Things were moving along quite quickly, and Hetty was very excited. And every night, Mr. Collins warned her to stay out of the actors' ways because they would be scared, as people are, about bats. And then it happened. Opening night came. People came to the theater all dressed up, suits and ties. There was a lot of excitement because everybody likes a mystery. Everybody. And Hattie watched carefully. She did as good as she could. She tried so hard to stay out of the way. And when the people filed into the theater, they were very excited because everybody was expecting to be scared to death, because that's what mysteries do. The first one to come into the theater, when it started, first there were blue lights and it got darker and darker and darker in the theater space. But Hattie was not afraid, and the audience was excited because what was going to happen now? Ooh, mystery, excitement. And the first one to come out was a man with a black cape. And the people were not overwhelmed. It's a Batman show? There are thousands of Batman shows. And they began to yawn. And then they became restless. But Hattie was so excited. She could hardly stand it. And then she couldn't any longer. And Hattie, the backstage bat, could no longer be backstage. And as hard as she tried, she swooped down into the light of the theater. And all the people went, ooh, and then they looked up and they saw it was a real bat. And then they saw her, they began to yell and cheer. And Hattie became so scared, she swooped up and disappeared. At the end of the show, the people were overwhelmed with excitement. They cheered Hattie on, but she was not to be seen. The show became an instant success, and Hattie became a star. And every night she was asked to come and perform. And every night after her performance, Mr. Collins would bring her one rose. And that is good enough for a standing ovation. Hattie the backstage bat brought excitement and got a job. And every night she got a reward. As for you, my friends out there, I do the same to you. Have a great day, a day full of surprises, and be curious. Always know that there is something out there to learn, either from Hattie the backstage bat or perchance from something you already know. And in the meantime, play ball. Have a great day, and thanks for coming.